Have you ever made a mistake in your life that literally changed the game forever? I mean, this one bad decision changed the very fabric of your life, and you can still feel the effects of it today. In this video, we're going to talk about how God's creation, the first humans on earth, Adam and Eve, made a decision that changed the world as we know it, and how that still affects you today. Today, we're going to be focusing on Genesis chapter 3, the fall of man. This chapter is arguably one of the most important chapters in the whole Bible. And that's a bold statement. I love almost every chapter of the Bible. Been reading it for a long time. But Genesis chapter 3? Genesis chapter 3? Genesis chapter 3? Woo! This is when everything changes. This is when God changes the game for everything and everyone. Now, you could argue with me and say, no, DK, Genesis chapter 6 is when everything changed because the flood came and destroyed everything. We get to that later. Let's talk about chapter 3, the fall. So, in the previous video, if you haven't seen it, we talked about how God created man, how he formed Adam from the dust of the ground, and he breathed life, the breath of life into his nostrils, and he became a living being. And then God said, it's not good for this guy to be alone. So he caused Adam to fall asleep, and he went inside and took Adam's rib and formed the woman out of Adam's rib. And then he presented the woman to Adam, and Adam said, wow. And then he said it backwards. Wow. And then he said it upside down and backwards. Mom, wow. And he loved Eve so much, he named her woman because she came from man. And this man and this woman, the first human beings on earth, lived together in the Garden of Eden in perfect prosperity, protection, provision, and purpose. That's what we talked about the last video. You got to go back and see it. That was a great video. Now we're talking about the fall. So that was Genesis 2, verses 7 through 25. Now we're getting into Genesis 3, the fall. Genesis 3:1 says, the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of the tree in the garden? Stop. So the last video, we talked about how God gave a command to Adam and Eve. You can have every tree freely, every and freely. Those are abundance words. You can have every tree of the garden freely, except this one tree. You see it over there? That tree looks good, don't it? You can't have that tree. You can have the fruit of that tree. That's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I don't want you touching that one. I don't want you eating of that fruit, but you can have all these other ones, right? So that's what we're talking about. That's the context. In chapter 3, the serpent is asking Eve, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? Anybody else notice something? He's twisting God's words. God said, you shall eat freely of every tree of the garden, but not this one tree. The devil comes to Eve in the form of the serpent. He's speaking through the serpent, and he's saying, hey, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? Manipulation, sneaky, crafty. He just told you in the first verse, now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field. So what do you expect him to be but crafty? He comes up, he slides to the woman. He says, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. So Eve added her own twist to it. Now, God didn't say nothing about touching it. He just said, you can't eat of that fruit. Eve says, But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it lest you die. Verse 4 might just be the most controversial verse in the Bible. Verse 4, it's crazy. Just listen. And then I want you to go and read it. But for right now, listen. Oh, and also like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay. Verse 4, but the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Oh, what? Say what? So the devil says, okay, I hear what you're saying, Eve. I don't even know if you knew her name was Eve. Who cares? I hear what you're saying, but you ain't gonna die. Wait, what? So the devil just straight up lied in the garden. This is the perfect place of peace, prosperity, protection, provision, purpose. Y'all like that? That's pretty creative, right? This is the perfect place of peace, prosperity, protection, purpose, provision. And the devil lied and said, you shall not surely die. And then he says, here's the reason God don't want you to eat it. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So verse 6 says, so when the woman saw, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight to the eyes and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. Do y'all see how smooth the devil was when he deceived Eve? Am I the only person who sees that? This was smooth. It was very intentional. It was very smooth. It was very wicked. And it was successful because Eve did it. Okay, look. Let's go back to verse 4. I want y'all to really understand this because this literally changes the world as we know it. This one moment changed everything for us. And we still feel the effects of it today, whether you believe or not. Okay, here we go. Verse 4. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. I get chills just reading that. You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit, the forbidden fruit. God said, you should not eat it, for in the day that you eat it, you will die. The devil tells her, you ain't gonna die. Eve starts looking at the tree with a different attitude. And now she wants the fruit. Eve takes the fruit and she says, it looks good to eat and it's beautiful and it might make me wise. And she ate it. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Now I want you to pay attention to something. Eve ate, that's bad. She disobeyed God. When Adam ate, verse 7, then the eyes of both were opened and they knew that they were naked. Now remember in the last video, I believe it's Genesis 1 verse 25, it says, and the man and woman were naked and were not ashamed. Now let's fast forward. Now we at chapter 3 verse 7. Then the eyes of both were open and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. Basically, they made themselves some clothes because now they were naked. But they didn't know that until they disobeyed God. They were innocent before. Now they're aware of disobedience. Now they're aware of evil. Maybe that's why the tree was called the knowledge of good and evil. Good was normal for them. It was life. But they disobeyed God. Now, oh, evil. This tree was like a morality test. Okay, so listen to this. This is when things get really interesting. If you love psychological thrillers and drama movies on Netflix, this is for you right here. Verse 8. And then they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, because it was hot, in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. So wait a minute, I just thought of this actually. God blessed Adam and Eve with abundance and said you can eat freely of all these trees, not that tree. They ate from that tree. Now all the other trees, they're hiding amongst those trees trying to hide from God. This is so good to me. All right, cool. So verse 8, they heard the sound. Can you imagine this? What does the presence of God sound like? Can you imagine hearing the sound of God walking? Okay, let's say you just did something that God told you not to do, and then you heard the sound of God walking up your stairs. Yeah, I don't think that bed will be dry anymore. I think it's going to be some pee stains in that bed. All right, let's keep it real. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves. Fear, this is the first time we see fear and separation in the Bible. This is the first time Adam and Eve are feeling fear and separation from God because of sin. This is like ministering to me. So the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself." And God said, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, this is an amazing piece of dialogue. For all my writers out there, this is drama. For everybody who says the Bible is boring, you haven't really read it. And you haven't really read it in the cool voices that I read it in. He said, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman." Oh, that blame game. That blame game. Adam was smooth with it too. Look at this. Pay attention to this. Adam said, "The woman." That was smooth. He said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent." This is so smooth. So God says, "Why'd you do this?" Adam says, "The woman." God says, "Why'd you do this?" Eve said, "The serpent." The serpent deceived me and I ate. This is when things about to get real. For all the serious people who are actually like reading the word and studying the word in intent, this is the proto-evangelium. The proto-evangelium is translated to the first gospel. The proto-evangelium in the Greek is the first gospel. This is the first time in the whole Bible that the gospel is proclaimed. And who is it proclaimed from? God himself. Verse 14, the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life." Then he says, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." Stop. That's the first proclamation of the gospel. What God is saying to the devil through the serpent, what God is saying is, because you've done this, you are cursed. And I'm going to put enmity between you and the woman, between you and my creation. There's always going to be enmity, tension, conflict. He is the enemy. He is the accuser of the brethren. He seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. He hates us. It's enmity. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed, the seeds of the devil, and her seed. Now, this is symbolic for Jesus Christ. What God is doing in this moment is he's prophesying. In the midst of his divine punishment, he's offering divine redemption. In the middle of handing out consequences, he's handing out blessings through the person, through the sacrifice, through the proclamation of Jesus Christ. And he's doing it while damning the devil. That's who we serve. He's a sovereign. Okay, all right. So what he says is, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head. Jesus Christ will crush you. You gonna bruise his heel because he's gonna die for humanity, but he's gonna crush you. He's gonna bruise your head. That's the gospel. That was my very first video. Let's move on because I know my time is running out. Then he said to the woman, ladies, I'm sorry. I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain, you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband. Some translations say your desire will be towards your husband, but he shall rule over you. And then to the man, his first creation, he says, into Adam. Now, this is interesting. I'm almost done. Thank you for watching this far. Thank you so much. And to Adam, he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed. So he punished the devil. He cursed the devil. He punished the woman. He cursed the woman. But listen to this. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain, you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. Wait. He cursed the devil. He cursed the woman. When he got to man, he cursed the ground. He cursed creation. So now there's a complicated relationship when he punished the devil. Now there's a complicated relationship between the devil and the woman, between the devil's offspring and the woman's offspring. He cursed the woman. Now there's a complicated relationship between the woman and, get this, and her purpose. Woo, that boy cooking. There's a complicated relationship between her and her purpose. What do you mean purpose? A woman is the only human creation able to bring forth a child. This is Bible. This is Bible. This is Bible. The woman is the only one who can bring forth the child. The man plants the seed, conception begins, but the woman pushes out. She births out. So God, in this punishment, now the thing that only she's able to do, she has to do it in great pain. So she has a complicated relationship with her purpose, with her function. And then he goes to the man and he curses the ground. So now the man has a complicated relationship with his purpose and his function. So now he says, in pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face, you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. God is telling him, out of that ground that I formed you from, you're going to return back to it. Because I told you, if you eat this fruit, you shall surely die. The devil told you you wasn't going to die. But guess what? Out of that ground I created you from, I'm going to put you back in it. What the parents say? I brought you into this world, I'm going to take you out. Where do you think they got that from? Okay, I'm telling you, the Bible is not boring. I'm trying to tell you, you just got to read it, and you got to read it dramatic like me. Okay, anyway. By the sweat of your face, you shall eat the bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to the dust you shall return. So guess what? You're going to go back to that dust because I told you would. It's not a surprise. It's called commandment, and it's called obedience. So basically, God created man to live in perfect peace, prosperity, protection, provision, purpose. He created man to have a special relationship and communion with himself. The devil deceived man by causing man to disobey God's command. Because of that disobedience, we were disconnected from God. That relationship got separated because of sin. So there were consequences to that sin. So in this, what we just read, God was dishing out the consequences. And the ultimate consequences, as we read further, I'm not going to do it because I'm running out of time. God banishes them from the Garden of Eden and puts angels on either side and a flaming sword to block off the entrance. Now man doesn't have access to the tree of life. We've been talking a lot about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I can see it. But there was also the tree of life in the midst of that garden. The tree of life sustained Adam and Eve, and they got life from it. But now our access is blocked off from it. In 3:15, we talked about how God said, he will bruise your head, you will bruise his heel. He was talking about Jesus Christ. And through Jesus Christ, if we believe in him, if we believe that he came down as a sinless man and he died the death of all the sinners in the world, and he rose from the dead with all power in his hand for us, for our forgiveness, if we believe that and we strive to follow him, one day when he comes back, we will have access to that tree of life. We will have access to that perfect place of provision, protection, prosperity, and purpose. But it all starts and ends with Jesus Christ. I want to thank you for taking this time with me. This was a wild ride, but thank you for watching these videos about the rise and fall of man, about the origins of humanity. Next time, we're going to get into some really interesting stuff. I would love for you all to please like, subscribe, and share this video with as many people as you can. I truly appreciate you all watching this video and taking this time with me. Thank you. Be blessed.